Listen, you're all exercising your freedom of assembly. And that, well, I'm a constitutional lawyer, so weird things excite me. That excites me to see you doing that.
Oh, yes.
And I'm encouraged at the fact that, although there's problems with our system, obviously I don't need to tell you people that, but you're still able to do that, right? There's no tear gas here. There's no military, right? As bad as things are, I'm thankful and encouraged by the fact you're able to do this. And you're only doing this with, the fear of maybe getting a little cold. Well, that's good, okay? That means there's still something left to salvage here, and there's still some good things about our system. As a lawyer, I work within a very rigid system, right? And I might not like things about it, but there are good things about it. And I work within it to change it and make it better and to improve things that the system impacts. You're engaging it by being here today. That's great. This is part of democracy in action. You can actually get a real fancy-looking copy of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms for free. My wife discovered this. We got them from my kids. My kids are homeschooled, so I actually have a copy. You can get it for free. So I would like all of you to go home and inundate the office that does this. Just Google it, you'll find it, and you order one of these paper hard copies of these things for free and have it. It's just so you can refer back to it and just so you can have it. And so that office knows there's people that are still interested in that. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's, that document is more than just a document. That's the reason you're able to be here, right? It's the reason I'm able to do what I do. You should all cherish that, okay? It's not perfect, okay? I mean, even the American Constitution is not perfect. But it's what we have. It's what we have to work with, and we need to cherish it. As my esteemed boss always says, rights are like muscles. Use them or you lose them. If you don't exercise them, you don't keep them, right? So what rights we have, we need to keep exercising. I mean, you're doing that, obviously. You're here. You're exercising the freedom of assembly. That's great. Keep doing it. Democracy is not a great system, but it's the best system we have. It's the least of the worst systems of government. Government is not inherently a good thing, but we have to have something of a government. And we've chosen to do it through democracy in Canada. There are legitimate, good ways to use democracy to keep it the best it can possibly be, okay? And I want to encourage all of you to do that. If you're not, this is the most important thing in my opinion, if you're not the member of a political party, go home and become one. Okay, I mean that. Go home today, spend the $10 and become a member of a political party. Now, I'm not going to advocate for which one. Maybe for some of you it's the Green Party, okay? Maybe for some of you it's one of the independence parties. Maybe it's even the Conservative Party. I don't know, okay? But that's one of the most powerful ways you can legitimately influence democracy. I mean, political parties are like organizations. They have boards. You can get elected to be on the board, right? You don't like Jason Kenney's party? You actually have the freedom to join the party and put your name in the hat to become a board of his party, okay? If you're going to put in the effort and the time and the energy to come here, go do some of the other things that are going to have potentially even more influence, okay? Legitimate influence, all right? Obviously, put your money where your mouth is. Some of us have more than others. I get it. But support the organizations that advocate for the things that you care about, right? And I don't just mean the Justice Center, right? There's other advocacy organizations that are advocating for issues. And if you see that there's a gap, right? Look, if there's not an organization that's advocating against lockdowns, form one. Not just a Facebook group, but an actual organization. Do that sort of stuff. These guys pay attention to other political parties that are gaining traction. They pay attention to advocacy organizations that have a lot of following, right? I would ask you to have patience with us, stick with us. Maybe some of you are impatient. We've been in this situation for months, and it's ongoing. And why isn't there more court challenges? Well, I don't have all the time to explain why. I mean, obviously the courts were closed, and as you may know, it does take quite a while to sit down and write a court application. So I would ask you to please continue to support us, whether it's financially or just in the sense of being a supporter. But we do what we do, like I said, in the system, and so we want to assert rights, in a way that's competent, right? Unfortunately, there's just some rights we don't have, and maybe and that's maybe a fault with our system. But we have to work with the rights that we do have. And so we have to assert the right to liberty, the right to security of the person when it comes to masks, the right to assemble when it comes to church and being able to meet in larger numbers. And we have to assert all these rights. We have to do it in a way that is actually going to be respected in the courts and is actually going to get people's attention and make them think, right? We need to persuade people. And this is my next point about what you can do, not as part of the system, but just what you can do as people, is one-on-one, face-to-face, trying to persuade people. That's hard work, right? That's hard work, I know, but people, people respond to other real people saying, now wait a minute, do you really think you have the truth on that? Look, if you guys are convinced that you have the truth on whether it's COVID or what's good for public health or whether lockdowns work, any of that stuff, you got to try and persuade people one-on-one. That's hard, dirty work, but that's what we got to do. That's what we got to do more of in Edmonton and Alberta and in Canada generally. My wife is American, and I tell you, when I go down there, her brothers, nothing is off the table for what they want to talk about, right? And as Canadians, we self-censor a little bit. We think, it's taboo, I don't want to talk about it, but that's how things change. That's how the truth gets out there. That's how people are able to argue and reason in a civil way and not just scream at each other on social media. That's how hearts and minds are changed. One-on-one conversation saying, look, do you really think you know what's going on here? I have something to share with you. Actually, did you know about this, right? If we're gonna change this situation and get to a point where we're having more talks about facts, real facts, and reason, and not just fear, then you guys got to do that. Right? You got to try and reach these people. And look, I practice what I preach. I engage with people, right? It's hard work, but that's how we're going to change things, right? That's how we're going to get what we think the truth is out there, right? That's exercising your free speech right? Don't self-censor. I'm probably preaching to the choir about not self-censoring, but I encourage you. You have no idea how important it is. I'm telling you from my perspective as a free speech lawyer, just how important it is that you constantly exercise that right.
100%.
Woo! Yeah!
So, again, thanks for being here and exercising your rights. I only stay a free person because of what you guys do, right? I can't defend anything that anybody hasn't already asserted. So I only have rights to defend if I have people exercising those rights. And one of the most amazing things anybody can do with their life, I think, is to do what I do. So thank you to you for giving me that opportunity and for taking the risk of asserting and exercising your rights. Good on you for doing that. Keep doing it, and never forget that as bad as things are, you're still able to do that to some degree, and that's good. And those that come behind you are going to thank you that you did that, and you didn't just capitulate, because our rights are not something that can't be taken away from us. They can, and they will be if we let them. Right? Democracy and freedom takes constant vigilance, which is hard, but it's worth it, right? Freedom is worth it. It's worth the effort, right?
Yes!
So the charter applies to the state to bind them in how they deal with you as the people, okay? That's section 32 of the charter. It applies to government. So to give you the opposite of this, it does not apply in interactions I might have with Josh, okay? If he tries to shut me up, that might be unpleasant. In a legal sense, he's not violating my right, okay? Because he's not government, okay? So the Constitution, the Charter, is designed to protect the people as against the government, not the people as against each other, You see now, and you get some authoritarian people in government, like Trudeau, for example, who kind of forgets that and thinks that the charter is actually the charter is never a weapon to be used by the state against the people to make them do something. I don't know if you know this, but he's actually passed. I shouldn't say passed. He's instituted policies that compel people to comply with the charter. You don't comply with the charter; they do, right? You're protected by it, right? So this is not just technical, because our whole system is based on this. Now, that's the end of the charter. At the other end of the charter is our most critical problem. That's section 1. Okay, and this is one reason why I encourage you to go get this document, have it in front of you. You can refer back to this. Our Constitution is designed such that the government can get away with violating your constitutionally protected rights. If you look at section 1 of the charter, you might not realize this, but I gave you the colloquial meaning of it, right? And there's some fancy legal language in there about how all the rights are protected underneath unless the government can demonstrably justify violating them, right? But what that means in practice is that the government can violate your constitutional rights and get away with it. That's how section 1 works, and we need to, as a people in this country, be aware of that, because I've learned that most people aren't. And we should be asking ourselves whether or not we actually think that's a good system, and whether or not we like that, and whether or not that's turned out to be good for us, because we're seeing right now how maybe that's not. How that works is, I go to court. I did this yesterday. That's why I'm here. I went to court and I said, look, my client's constitutional rights have been violated. Well, then the government got up and said, well, okay, maybe, but we're able to do that because the Constitution allows us to do that. And then the judge gets to decide whether or not the government should be able to do that. Now, that can be a good or a bad thing, depending on how that judge views things. Okay, and this is where all this is connected. Okay, this whole section 1 of the charter thing and our justice system are connected, because at the end of the day, as bad as it is the government gets to violate our rights, it's the judges that get to decide whether or not the government gets away with it. Okay. So when I was in court yesterday, the judge heard arguments from the government that, well, look, we're able to violate this right. It was a free speech case. We're able to violate free speech because the charter gives us this ability, right? And the judge is ultimately going to decide whether or not the government is going to get away with violating free speech, right? Look, I'll tell you right now, you think it's bad how much control Dr. Hinshaw has and Kenny has over your daily lives, and they have a lot, and that maybe isn't good, but those 9 people in Ottawa who are our Supreme Court of Canada, I would argue they probably have even more say over your daily lives in the long run through the decisions that they make, right? Well, it's our constitutional system that gives them that much power, right? Through section 1 is the biggest way that happens. Because like I said, it's judges who ultimately get to decide whether the government gets away with violating your rights. It's not actually the government. The government does it and then tries to justify it under that section, but then the judges get to decide, right? If you have judges that maybe don't think individual liberties are a great thing, well, you can imagine what the outcome might be if they're faced with, government overreach or individual liberty. Which am I going to go with? This is part of how our system works, and if we're actually going to engage it and learn about it and try to make it better, we need to know about this, right? The judge I saw yesterday is part of the Queen's Bench. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's one of the levels of court in Alberta. There's 3, okay? Well, at that level of court, it's not your government who appoints that judge. It's Trudeau. It's the federal government in Ottawa that appoints the judges on the Queen's Bench in Alberta. Maybe that's bad, maybe that's good, but you should know about it. And if you don't like it, you should be getting engaged on it and saying, I don't like this. Our system needs to change. I want a judge appointed by the government that I elect here in Alberta.
Amen.
Not the federal.
Amen.
Not the federal government that a bunch of socialists over in Ontario elected, right? You need to be aware of that and then speak your mind about it if you don't like it. While we still have that right to challenge and criticize that, you need to speak your mind about it and learn about it, right? And learn more about your rights than what I can tell you here today. Go on the Justice Center's website. That's not the only place. There's all kinds of other places that are giving this information out. Go learn about it, right? I'm not saying go read case law. I understand that's boring and difficult, but you can read from places like the Justice Center about how our rights actually work. And you can learn about it. And informed people is the people that's difficult to control, right? If you know your rights, then you can exert them and exert them in a reasonable, intelligent way, right? I mean, good facts make good law. If I got people that are exercising their rights in a really good way, then it's going to make for a better case for me that I can potentially win on to defend those rights, right? So go and learn about how that works, right? You know, go and learn. Well, what does freedom of association mean? Well, most people don't know. That means that you have the ability to form an organization, right? That protects that. That's how labor unions are able to do what they do, right? Well, that means people like you can go and you can form an association. The government can't break it up because you have a constitutional right to do so. Learn about that. Know about that, right? Look, as far as court cases, you know we have a court case on Bill 10 that is moving. We have other cases that we're looking at going after, like the isolations and the quarantines and the size restrictions of gatherings. That's all stuff that we are very interested in, very concerned about, that we do want to take to court. It's coming. It's just, it takes a lot of work, and we only have a small team. So please bear with us, continue to support us, and look for that. And as much as we love Alberta and we do a lot of stuff here, we also do stuff across the country. I don't know if you know that, but we do stuff all across the country. And you know, we don't want to abandon the rest of the country either. So we are doing all that we can. And you know, look, I'll say this: if donations go up for somewhere like the Justice Center, we hire more lawyers. We do more work. And I'm sure a lot of you already, you know, donate lots. I'm not necessarily telling you to do that, but maybe spread the word. Like, look, there's this organization that has lawyers, that goes to court, that fights for our rights, and they, you know, if they have more donations, they hire more lawyers, right? I mean, the Americans, I don't know if you know, the Americans get this really, they have an army of civil liberty lawyers down there, right? Millions of dollars pour into these organizations. Because, I mean, well, it's Americans, right? I mean, you know, they're all about their rights. We need to do a little more of that up here. And then but pursuing truth is actually a fundamental underlying value of our constitutional system. It's in there. Judges have talked about it, and I keep forcing judges to look at it now in the cases that I run. Thank you.